Kate Williams paced back and forth in her small apartment, clutching the job description tightly in her hands. At 25 years old, she had dreamed of this day for months, yet she felt a storm brewing inside her. The weight of expectations made her stomach turn. What if she stumbled over her words? What if they didn't like her? These thoughts spiraled in her mind, filling her with a wave of anxiety that felt impossible to escape. As she finished her last-minute preparations, Kate glanced at the clock. It was time to leave. With each step toward the bus stop, she could feel her heart pounding louder. The bustling city around her blurred into a haze as fear took over. Was she ready for this job? She had rehearsed all her answers, but the thought of facing the interviewers made her palms sweaty. When she finally arrived at the towering office building, Kate took a deep breath and stepped inside. She walked nervously to the elevator, hoping it would carry her to success. As the doors closed, she felt a momentary sense of relief, but it was short-lived. Suddenly, the elevator jerked to a halt, and panic surged through her veins. Trapped in a small space, dread enveloped her. Just when despair began to settle in, she turned to see none other than Humphrey Bogart standing beside her, lighting a cigarette with an air of calm confidence. For a moment, Kate couldn't believe her eyes. Her anxiety felt distant as curiosity took its place. As Kate stood beside Humphrey Bogart, her surprise slowly transformed into a momentary distraction from her worries. But just moments ago, the weight of self-doubt had been heavy on her shoulders as she made her way to the office building. Each step felt like a battle against an invisible force that threatened to pull her back. Riding the bus through the bustling city, she watched the world pass by in a blur. The chattering commuters and honking cars sounded muted, echoing her growing turmoil. What if I forget everything? She thought, gripping her bag tighter. She envisioned herself stumbling over words, glancing at the interviewers who would surely look disappointed. The more she imagined, the deeper her anxiety sank. With every stop they made, likely adding more skilled candidates to the mix, Kate's heart raced faster. She thought of all her preparation, the countless hours spent rehearsing answers and dreaming of success. But each positive thought was overshadowed by fears of failure. When she stepped off the bus and stood before the tall office building, anxiety twisted in her stomach like a tight knot. She pushed through the revolving door and entered a world that felt intimidatingly bright and sharp, glass walls reflecting hope and doubt in equal measure. As Kate walked toward the elevator, she focused on breathing deeply to calm herself, but doubt crept back in with every step closer to her interview. Would it really be worth risking everything she had dreamed of? Her mind continued racing until all thoughts vanished as soon as Humphrey appeared beside her in that still moment of panic. Kate stepped into the elevator, feeling a mix of relief and trepidation as the doors slid shut behind her. The small, metallic space felt both comforting and suffocating. She quickly pressed the button for her floor, the bright light blinking back at her like a countdown to the unknown. As the elevator began to ascend, her heart raced in sync with her thoughts, each one more frantic than the last. Just breathe, she whispered to herself, but instead of calming down, her pulse quickened. The familiar hum of the elevator was drowned out by her spiraling worries. What if she forgot everything she had practiced? What if they didn't see her potential? Each scenario played out like a movie reel in her mind, gripping at her throat with anxiety. Then, without warning, the elevator jolted to a stop. The sudden halt felt like a punch to her gut. Panic surged through Kate as she pressed the button repeatedly, hoping it would start moving again. No, no, no! She thought frantically. The walls felt closer now, and she could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. In that moment of despair turned to disbelief when she caught sight of Humphrey Bogart standing calmly beside her. He lit a cigarette, seemingly unfazed by their predicament. Kate's panic began to fade as curiosity replaced fear. How could he be so relaxed? As he started to speak, his presence transformed the air around them from heavy with dread to light with possibility. As Kate stood frozen in the elevator, her mind racing with fear, she suddenly noticed the man beside her. It was none other than Humphrey Bogart, his familiar face illuminated by the soft light of the elevator. He exuded a calmness that seemed almost surreal in the tense atmosphere. With a nonchalant flick of his lighter, he lit a cigarette, the smoke curling into the air like a whisper calming her storm of anxiety. "Don't worry, kid," he said with a grin, his voice smooth and reassuring. "These things happen. Just gotta roll with it." His casual demeanor was a stark contrast to Kate's spiraling thoughts, and for a moment, she couldn't help but feel intrigued instead of terrified. Here she was, trapped in an elevator, yet somehow sharing space with a Hollywood legend. As he began to speak, Humphrey's stories flowed like the smoke from his cigarette. He recounted tales of his own struggles in the acting world, moments of failure that had haunted him, only to be followed by surprising triumphs. Each anecdote felt relatable, full of human experience that resonated deeply with Kate's own fears about her job interview. His laughter was infectious, and soon Kate found herself chuckling along. The elevator that once felt like a cage now seemed like a small stage where she was not alone. In this unexpected moment of connection with a star from silver screens past, her anxiety began to melt away, replaced by curiosity and a newfound sense of possibility. Kate's mind raced as she stood beside Humphrey Bogart, grappling with disbelief. Was this really him? The iconic actor, famous for his tough guy roles and captivating charisma, stood in a cramped elevator, completely at ease in their confined space. Her heart, which had been pounding with anxiety over the interview, now beat in disbelief. How could someone who seemed so larger than life be right next to her, sharing a moment that felt surreal? "Wait, are you really?" she stammered, struggling to form the words. Her typical worries about job interviews and failure faded slightly as she took in the sight before her, the familiar face, the nonchalant expression, and that casual flick of the lighter. It was as if her chaotic thoughts were tangled up in a whirlwind, and this Hollywood legend had stepped in to slow them down. Humphrey chuckled softly at her astonishment, his demeanor both warm and inviting. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he joked, his voice smooth and reassuring as he took a puff from his cigarette. The smoke curled around them, transforming the air into something comforting instead of claustrophobic. Kate couldn't help but smile at his charm. His presence felt like a safety net swinging beneath her fears. As he began to share his own stories of overcoming obstacles, moments when he felt lost but found his way back, Kate's confusion turned into an unexpected admiration. Here they were, two people from entirely different worlds, united in that tiny elevator. Humphrey took a slow drag from his cigarette, the smoke curling up towards the ceiling as he exhaled with a relaxed smile. His demeanor was unhurried and calm, as if being stuck in an elevator was just another day in the life of a Hollywood star. "You know, kid," he began, his voice rich and warm, "I've had my share of setbacks too." He leaned against the elevator wall casually, making the close space feel less confining. As he spoke, Kate couldn't help but be drawn into his stories. He recounted one particularly challenging audition where he had stumbled over lines and left feeling defeated. The way he told it made her laugh despite herself. Humphrey's self-deprecating humor cut through her lingering anxiety. "It was like my brain decided to take a vacation right when I needed it most," he said with a chuckle, rolling his eyes dramatically. With each story, Humphrey peeled back layers of his larger-than-life persona, revealing the human struggles behind his fame. He shared tales of perseverance and laughter from behind the scenes, how each failure had taught him something valuable, and how resilience became both an art and a necessity in his journey. Kate's worries about her interview faded further as she listened intently. Here was a man who faced rejection yet remained spirited and hopeful. With every word, Humphrey transformed the moment from one filled with fear into one filled with possibility, reminding her that even icons have their doubts, and that it's okay to not always succeed on the first try. As the elevator hummed softly around them, Humphrey leaned in, clearly eager to share more of his experiences. "Let me tell you about one of my early auditions," he began, a twinkle in his eye. "I walked into the room, confident, ready to impress, only to trip over my own feet and face-plant right in front of the casting directors." Kate couldn't help but chuckle at the image he painted. "I was mortified. But instead of running off in shame, I decided to laugh it off. I got up, dusted myself off, and said, "Well, if you're looking for someone who can fall flat on their face convincingly, I'm your guy." His laughter echoed in the small space, and Kate felt her anxiety drifting away like smoke from his cigarette. He continued with another story about a film that hadn't gone as planned. "We shot for weeks in freezing weather, and by the end, we were all just trying to keep warm. I thought the director had lost his mind. But when the movie came out, it turned out to be one of the biggest hits of my career." His eyes sparkled with nostalgia as he emphasized how sometimes the toughest challenges can lead to unexpected successes. "Life's a bit like that," he mused. "You just have to roll with the punches and find a way to make it work." With each story, Humphrey not only entertained Kate but also instilled in her a sense of hope and reassurance. She realized that setbacks didn't define success. Rather, it was how one responded to challenges that truly mattered. As Humphrey shared his stories, Kate felt a wave of emotions wash over her. Initially, she had been drowning in anxiety, her heart racing with every thought about the looming job interview. But now, listening to his laughter and relatable experiences, something inside her began to shift. Each tale he told peeled back layers of her fear, revealing a sense of camaraderie in their shared human experience. Kate found herself chuckling at his misadventures, picturing him stumbling in front of casting directors and making light of it all. It was refreshing to see someone so legendary embrace their imperfections. His humor was infectious, and soon, whenever he laughed, she couldn't help but join in. It felt as though they were no longer just two people stuck in an elevator but rather companions on a journey of self-discovery. With each story, Humphrey's wisdom sank deeper into her heart. She realized that everyone faces hardships and moments of doubt, even those who seem untouchable like him. As he spoke about resilience and rolling with the punches, Kate's worries about her own performance seemed less daunting. The pressure she had placed on herself melted away like the fog from a sunny morning. By the time the elevator doors opened, Kate was not only laughing but also feeling empowered. She understood that fear was a natural part of life and not something to be avoided at all costs. This unexpected encounter had transformed her perspective. She now viewed challenges as opportunities for growth rather than insurmountable obstacles. As Humphrey continued to share, one particular story struck a chord with Kate. He spoke of an early film where everything seemed to go wrong. "We had a scene that required us to shoot in a rainstorm," he recalled, grinning. "But not only did the rain machine break down, but I also slipped and fell right in the puddle we created. It was a disaster." He paused for effect, letting the laughter that followed fill the cramped elevator. "What I learned that day," he said, his tone shifting slightly more serious, "was that every mistake can lead to something funny, or even brilliant. We had to adapt quickly, so instead of stopping, we rewrote the scene right then and there. That struggle turned into a highlight of the movie." Kate nodded along, feeling empowered by the resilience he illustrated. She realized that it was not just about avoiding failure but embracing it and finding strength through those moments of uncertainty. Another story involved auditioning for a role he thought was perfect for him. "I was so confident," he chuckled. "But when I walked in, I fumbled my lines like an amateur. If I had let that define me, I would have missed out on some fantastic opportunities afterwards." These anecdotes resonated with Kate deeply. Each failure reminded her that everyone faces challenges and that it's how one responds to those challenges that truly matters. By the time Humphrey finished sharing his experiences, Kate found herself smiling widely, filled with newfound courage to face her own fear of the upcoming interview. As the elevator doors began to slide open, Kate felt a rush of anticipation wash over her. The soft whoosh of the doors was like the sound of a starting gun in a race, signaling that it was time for her to step into the world outside, which had seemed so daunting just a short while ago. Her heart, which had been pounding with anxiety only moments before, now beat steadily with newfound confidence. Turning to Humphrey, she met his warm gaze one last time. "Thank you," she said earnestly, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over her. His presence had transformed her from an anxious candidate into someone ready to take on challenges. "I wish you luck," he replied with a smile, his voice carrying a sense of encouragement that wrapped around her like a warm blanket. As she stepped out into the bright hallway, the sunlight seemed to illuminate not just her surroundings but also her spirit. The buzzing office atmosphere didn't feel as intimidating anymore. Instead, it sparked a sense of excitement within her. Her earlier fears melted away like morning dew under the sun. Kate took a deep breath and squared her shoulders, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. She felt inspired by Humphrey's stories of resilience and humor. They echoed in her mind like an empowering mantra. No longer burdened by self-doubt, she now viewed this interview as an opportunity to showcase her strengths rather than something to fear. With each confident step toward the interview room, Kate realized that she was no longer just a girl overwhelmed by anxiety, but a woman stepping boldly into her future. In the moments that followed her encounter with Humphrey Bogart, Kate reflected deeply on the experience and the lessons she had learned. The fear that had once loomed over her like a shadow now felt like a natural part of life, something to be acknowledged and embraced rather than avoided. She realized that everyone, regardless of their status or success, faces challenges and moments of self-doubt. Humphrey had laid bare his vulnerabilities, and in doing so, he had given her permission to acknowledge her own fears. It was liberating to understand that fear was not a sign of weakness but rather a universal emotion shared by all. This shift in perspective transformed how Kate felt about her upcoming interview. It was no longer a daunting obstacle but an opportunity to learn and grow. As she walked down the hallway, anticipation replaced dread in her heart. The inspiring stories she had heard from Humphrey echoed in her mind, reminding her of the importance of resilience. She felt equipped to face whatever came next, knowing that even if she stumbled or faced rejection, it would not define her journey. With each step, Kate embraced the idea that failure could lead to valuable lessons and laughter, just as Humphrey had shown her. This fresh outlook filled her with courage and determination. Rather than allowing fear to hold her back, she now saw it as a catalyst for growth, an invitation to take risks and strive for greatness. In that moment, Kate became more than just an anxious candidate. She emerged as a woman ready to seize opportunities and navigate life with confidence. With her heart steady and her mind clear, Kate entered the interview room feeling transformed. The bright lights and polished furniture that had once intimidated her now felt inviting. She recalled Humphrey's stories about resilience, laughter, and the inevitability of failure. These memories served as armor against the nervousness that had plagued her just moments before. As the interviewers greeted her, she offered a confident smile. Instead of stumbling over her words, she spoke clearly and passionately about her experiences and aspirations. Every question posed to her became an opportunity to showcase not just her skills but also her authenticity. With each answer she gave, Kate felt lighter, more assured in her ability to connect with those around her. Even when faced with challenging questions, she remembered Humphrey's advice about embracing uncertainty. Rather than faltering, she leaned into those moments with curiosity, viewing them as chances to share what she had learned through both successes and setbacks. By the time the interview concluded, Kate was no longer just relieved, she was exhilarated. She had tackled each challenge head-on, embodying the very resilience Humphrey had encouraged in their elevator conversation. As she left the room, a sense of accomplishment washed over her. This experience would remain etched in her memory as a turning point. Walking out of the building, Kate recognized that this was only the beginning of many challenges to come. With newfound confidence and a fresh perspective on fear as a natural part of life, she was ready to face whatever lay ahead with strength and determination.